Hi, I'm Kevin. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, because we all need to learn how to be at least somewhat self-sufficient, I'd like to show you how to make a loaf of very basic but very delicious white bread. I made this loaf last night and then had to summon all of my willpower not to cut into it. Anyway, the recipe is very simple, and the only special equipment you'll need is a mixing bowl, a loaf pan, and at least one impeccably clean hand. And into the mixing bowl goes 1/3 cup of very warm water. This is about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Then add 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Here it is. And if you don't have any active dry yeast, just hold off on this recipe until you do. Then we're going to add 1 1/2 tablespoons of regular granulated sugar. Give this a quick whisk. Then add 1 cup of lukewarm milk, and this has been scalded and then cooled. And so that the bread has a moist crumb, we want to add 1 1/2 tablespoons of shortening, and I'm using regular old Crisco. Finally, actually not finally, we have a couple more things. Add 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. Salt is for flavor. And then add 3 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. And we're going to stir this together. And I'm going to stir this in one direction. When you stir in one direction, it helps the stirring in one direction helps the strands of gluten to form, or so I have been told. And you just stir until the dough becomes so stiff that you cannot stir it anymore. And scrape off the sticky dough from the spoon. And we're going to tip this onto a non-floured work surface. And then we have to knead the sucker. But before we do that, we're going to cover this with a towel and then quickly wash out and dry the mixing bowl. Going to wash it, dry it, and grease it. I'll be right back. Okay, here's my cleaned and dried and greased bowl. I just sprayed the bowl with non-stick vegetable spray. That's a perfectly good grease for bread. And now, on to kneading the dough. First, roll up your sleeves and remove any jewelry. I cannot remove my wedding ring because it won't come off. We need to knead the dough until it becomes smooth and elastic and not at all sticky. It's going to be very sticky at first, but do not be tempted to add any flour. Grab my bench scraper. Now, when you knead dough, the idea is to fold it over on itself and then push it out with the heel of your hand. If the dough is too sticky, like mine is, lift it up and slam it down about 10 times. Yeah, I learned this little trick from a French baker in Paris. There, it's less sticky already. And this kneading work may take about 10 minutes. We shall see. And I don't know if I'm going to edit this video to shorten the kneading job, visually anyway, but we shall see. If you've never made bread before, and certainly if you've never kneaded bread before, it will probably be very helpful for you to watch the whole process. What we're doing is manipulating the dough so that strands of gluten form. Gluten is the protein that gives bread its elastic texture. And I always laugh when I see bakers keep adding more and more flour while they're kneading dough. And when you keep adding flour, you trick yourself into thinking that the dough is no longer sticky and it is therefore kneaded enough, when indeed it has barely been kneaded at all. So just keep working the dough and it will lose its stickiness. I actually learned how to knead dough when I was a little boy. My mother was a major bread baker. Actually, she still is. And in fact, before she met my father, she worked at a wheat lab in Spokane, Washington. This would have been in the mid-1950s. And what this lab did was it took in various strains of wheat that local farmers grew, and they would test the wheat. They would test it for gluten content, for protein content, for taste, for texture. And they would mill the wheat and then turn it into bread. And then my mother would participate in the taste testing, which was a very serious job. And they would analyze the bread for all of its various qualities, and then they would grade the wheat. Yeah, this dough is already becoming less sticky. Look, nothing on my hand. Almost nothing on my hand. And just keep working it. One other thing I'd like to mention is that if you are watching this video in April of 2020, we are in the midst, as you know, of a global pandemic, and it's very hard to find active dry yeast in supermarkets. Since I'm getting low on yeast, I actually went online to Amazon and I looked, and of course you cannot buy just a jar of yeast, but I did find a 2-pound bag of active dry yeast for $59 and change, which is highway robbery. But I went ahead and ordered it anyway. And when it arrives, I will do a vlog to show the yeast, and then I'll show you how to test yeast to make sure that it is alive and active. Well, that might be fun to do. And if this $59 yeast is very old and not active, I am not going to be very pleased. Anyway, we're getting there. Now let's test this dough. So you can tell that you've kneaded the dough long enough if you pull out a section and it doesn't tear easily. And mine is starting to tear. So I'm going to knead it just a little more. Yeah, I hope this kneading portion of the video is helpful to you. Probably my banter is not helpful at all. Okay. So there. I'm going to fling it down a few more times. Sorry about the noise. You just have to treat the dough very roughly. Oh yeah, now it's becoming, can you see that? It's becoming very springy. Yeah, even if you have a bread machine or you have a standing mixer with a dough hook, it's very helpful to know how to knead dough by hand because you will get a feel for the dough. And if the electricity ever goes out, you will still be able to make your own bread. We're supposed to, during this pandemic, we are supposed to stay out of grocery stores as much as possible. So if you can make your own bread, well, that's one less thing you'll have to buy. And believe me, homemade bread is always superior to store-bought. Okay, now we're going to do that little test over here. Oh, look. Yep, this is good. Look at this. So I can pull this, it doesn't tear. The dough is very smooth. Now form it into a ball by just tucking the sides of the dough under, like this. You'll have a smooth ball. And then drop it smooth side down into the bowl. And then flip the dough to grease the other side. And hang on, I have to grab a sheet of plastic wrap. There. So cover the bowl with plastic wrap and then put this in a warm location until the dough doubles in volume. That's going to take 90 minutes to 2 hours, so we'll be back. Oh, while the dough is rising, select your loaf pan. You can use an 8-inch pan like this, or a 9-inch pan. And let me show you that yesterday, let me fix the camera here, I baked this loaf in an 8-inch pan, and it worked just fine, but the bread kind of looks like, I don't know, a big foot in a little shoe. So today, I'm going to use the 9-inch pan. And you have to grease the pan. I'm going to use shortening. Get it on the bottom, spread it on the bottom and the sides. There. I'll see you when the dough is ready. All right, 19 minutes later, my dough has definitely doubled in volume. So remove the plastic wrap, but be sure to save it because we're going to need it later on. And then we need to deflate the dough, and you can do it 2 ways. Gently like this, or with brute force, like that. Does it make a jot of difference how you deflate it? Drop it onto the work surface, which again is not floured, and then form the dough into a ball. Again, just turning the sides underneath. This is very nice looking dough. Check it out. And then pat it out into a disc, a rough disc. Okay, and we want the disc to be the same diameter as the loaf pan. So let's check it out. Yep, this is about 9 inches. Hey Tiger, my kitty cat is complaining for some reason. What's the matter, Tiger? And then, I forgot, Mickey Mouse ears. Stretch out 2 sections of the dough. Let me see if I can move the camera a little better for you. Yeah, pull out 2 sections from the upper part of the dough, and then either Mickey Mouse ears or bat wings, your choice, and then fold them in to make a triangle. So it looks like I'm making a paper airplane at this point. And then pat that out, and then let's see, I'm going to move. I want you to really see what I'm doing here. Okay, and then roll the dough and push with your thumbs. Roll, push, roll, push, roll, push. Yeah, we did the same maneuver when we made sweet orange rolls last week. Move the camera again. Roll, push, roll, push. And when you get to the end, karate chop. Hiya! To make a seal, or rather to seal the, what do I want to say? To seal the seam, that's it. And then pinch the seam. Like this. Pinching is always a fun job. Okay, flip it over. And the reason we rolled the dough that way was to create surface tension. We want to have a smooth top. And then in it goes to the loaf. Oops. Well, that didn't work out too well, did it? Okay, we're going to try this again. Into the loaf pan, like this. And then want to cover this with plastic wrap. And keep in mind that this dough is going to rise up. It's going to form a crown. And we don't want the dough to stick to the plastic wrap. So I'm going to spray my wrap with a little non-stick vegetable spray. Loosely cover the pan, and then put this in a warm location, and let the dough, moving the monitor, let the dough rise until it has doubled in volume, and this will take about 45 minutes. Also, preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. See you soon. All right, here's the loaf after 43 minutes of rising time. Okay, and this is the reason I greased the plastic wrap, so that it would slip right off without tearing the top of the dough. So then this goes into the preheated 425 degree oven until the top browns beautifully. And that will take 25 to 30 minutes. See you then. All right, let's have a look. The bread has been in the oven for 25 minutes. It's bronzed and beautiful and begging to be eaten. However, we cannot eat it just yet. The bread has to cool to room temperature. It's hot. And here's what I like to do, is brush the top with melted butter. And the butter makes the crust extra delicious. Yeah, you're better off letting the bread cool to room temperature, and if at all possible, wait 24 hours before you cut into it. It will have a much better texture that way, and it will slice much easier. Now, I have that loaf that I made yesterday, so let's get into it. I think I'm going to move the camera for this. Yeah, I want you to see how this bread looks. It's a beautiful crumb. Hey, Tiger. And let's see how thinly we can slice this. Very thinly. Thin slices mean fewer carbs. Chin chin. Has a lovely moist crumb. The crust is slightly crisp. I hope I don't have crumbs all over my lips. And it has a terrific yeasty, weedy aroma. Well, you cannot buy bread of this quality at the supermarket. Commercial bread tends to be too soft and too cake-like, in my opinion. This bread has terrific body. It's great for sandwiches, it's great for toast. You can grind it up for breadcrumbs. And as you've seen, it's not at all difficult to make, and you only need very basic ingredients and your impeccably clean hands. So I hope you'll give the bread a try, and I hope you'll post a comment below. Let me know if the recipe was helpful to you, and I hope that my kneading segment was not too long. I'll see you next time with another delicious recipe. Bye for now.